You're listening to Montreal Now with Aaron Rand and Natasha Hall on CJAD 800.
That is James Mennie over at the Montreal Gazette. And Jim, I'm going to start with the first headline today, which you're right, have Quebecers began to stop normalizing the CAQ. So explain what you mean by that.
Well, the gist behind that, guys, is it possible that Quebecers finally, after 5 years, are realizing that the CAQ is not the solution to what had basically placed Quebec politics in gridlock for 50 years, that in fact it is, as we say in these parts, un parti comme les autres. And, you know, it's funny, a week ago today, one of our topics of discussion was Legault has had a tough week. Is he ready for another one? And I got to tell you, this week has been equally rough, and I think the series is going to continue. We discovered today that scamp, leader of the Conservatives, Eric James, commissioned Léger Marketing to conduct a poll on whether or not Eric Kerr, the Quebec City CAQ MNA, who said, if the tunnel project doesn't go through, I'll resign, should in fact keep his word. 57% of those surveyed said yes. And what's even more daunting is of those who describe themselves as CAQ supporters, 38% said he should leave office as well. That comes on the heels of a Radio-Canada report. We didn't get to talk about this week, but it's a hell of a story. Radio-Canada reported that, you know, this alternate idea for the highway tunnel, this idea that, you know, well, we're going to build this tunnel just for public transit. It's going to have one, you know, just be one tube. It's not going to be anything fancy. And that was basically the alternative to the highway project that was so essential. And even during the election campaign, they said this has got to happen. It's absolutely essential for the Quebec City area. Turns out that study had been in the works since June of last year. In other words, this was a real possibility, and they knew there was probably going to be a climb down from the highway tunnel. But all that said, who knows? It certainly doesn't add to the CAQ's credibility. It certainly doesn't add to François Legault's public luster. Bill 23 yesterday, guess what? You bet. I'm mad about it. A lot of Anglo-Quebecers are mad about it. But the fact is, this attempt by Bernard Drainville to reform the education system by basically taking all the circuitry and running it through his desk is not being met with applause. In fact, it's being looked at as yet another, as big a power grab in the education system as Christian Dubé's so-called reform of the healthcare system, which will see all the day-to-day stuff go to basically a separate private agency, and he'll just have to think deep health ministry thoughts. Hasn't been a good week at all. François Legault got a rather cold reception at the Quebec Union of Municipalities this week. We didn't get to talk about that either, but they are, they're reeling from the effects of climate change. François Legault addresses them a few days after being in Bay St. Paul because of the flooding, going to visit the damage. And he made that visit, by the way, guys, exactly 1 month after he was, in Montreal and out in the South Shore because of the ice storm damage. They're saying this is a reality. We don't want to have an argument over who's to blame for climate change. We need money to prepare for the damage, to prevent the damage. They say they need $2 billion over 5 years. François Legault is basically saying, sorry, I ain't got no money. The best I can do is give you maybe a little more than half of that. Didn't make a lot of friends over there either. So all of a sudden, we're not talking about the nation, solidarity, or, marching together towards a brighter future for Quebec that, of course, will be completely electrically powered. We're talking about a government which more and more is in a defensive position and, unfortunately, is being headed by a guy who doesn't play defense very well because, as I like to say, his skin is about as thick as that of your average cocktail weed.
Well, as you describe all this and the bad week that it's been and is continuing to be, I can't help but wonder, and I know I brought this up the other day when they did that latest poll because of the disappointment, if you will, by voters of the CAQ, especially in the Quebec City area. And I think to myself that the party that gained the most from that was the PQ. And I know we long ago dead and buried the PQ. I wonder, Jim, did we move a little too quickly? Is Paul St. Pierre Plamondon the likely beneficiary here, do you think, going forward? Or is this just a one-week event?
Oh, that's a flash in the pan, I absolutely assure you. Because sooner or later, don't forget, he's being lauded for his measured responses, for his, very sort of professional attitude and appearance working as a politician. sooner or later, he's going to have to go back. And it wasn't that long ago that he was doing this. He's going to have to go back to the mantra that everything would be better if Quebec was its own country. Something that everybody, the one consensus in Quebec is that we're way past that conversation. But listen, that's a part of his brand. So enjoy and lest we forget, guys, they're still like in double digits behind the CAQ. They are not a force with their 3-person caucus. But all that said, the real question is what in the world will the Liberals do? Exactly. If I was them, I'd be up 24/7 trying to figure out a way to put myself on the map as more than the Liberal Party of the West Island. I know they're going to do this road trip and meet and greet and talk to all the, I guess what few rank and file members they have left in the regions. But man, oh man, this is a huge window of opportunity for the Liberals and to a certain extent all the opposition parties. But let's face it, the Liberals are the official opposition, and we should be hearing more from them for whatever reason. I don't think Marc Tanguay is doing necessarily a bad job, but for some reason they have not put themselves on the radar in the way you would expect an opposition party to do, especially when the government of the day is walking on rakes every 2 hours.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they've been largely MIA, and I feel like we're hearing a heck of a lot more from Marwa Risky than we are from Marc Tanguay.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And but this is it. They, I hate to use the expression, but they're rudderless right now. Okay, I know he's an interim leader, but they just seem to be the political equivalent of a Roomba. They just sort of go across the floor, bounce up against one issue, go towards another, bounce against that, but they don't really make contact. They're not gaining any traction on this. And my God, for their numbers to have remained absolutely fossilized at 14% since last October's election, it's going to take some pretty, some pretty organizational magic to turn that around. And I just wonder if that still exists in the Quebec Liberal Party.
Are they sweating it, though? Like, is the CAQ sweating it? Because we're so far out from an election. They're still, they've got, 90 seats? I mean, are they sweating it?
Are they sweating it? I would suspect that given the, the silence of François Legault overall. I mean, he's just been doing the gigs, but he's not really reacting to a whole heck of a lot. Remember, this is a party that governs by poll. They have all kinds of internal polls going. They've got to be careful because now it's gone beyond, the old spiel they used to have that, we're the ones who protect you from all the others, from the foreigners, from the immigrants, we're here to maintain your identity. It's great. François Legault built his little fort to protect the Quebec nation. The problem is the Quebec nation's got a lot on its mind. It's not worried about the boogeymen that François Legault wants to create. It has economic concerns, is seeing a government that is flip-flopping on an almost weekly basis on fundamental issues, not just the tunnel, although the tunnel is going to be around for a long time, guys. Trust me on this. But also now we're seeing this idea, we want to electrify transportation in Quebec. We want to have 2 million electric cars on the road by 2030. However, we also want to lure more business to Quebec with cheap electrical power. And meanwhile, Hydro-Quebec pipes up and says, if we meet our criteria, if we meet our objective for electric vehicles, and whoever thought we'd live to hear this, we won't have enough electricity to go around.
Oh, great. Good.
That's
Glad we got to hear that now. That is reassuring. So let me flip the switch here and move from provincial to federal. We had Justin Trudeau give a speech last night, pretty much what we expected to hear. And I don't know if you saw what Pierre Poilievre had to say today. It kind of made me roll my eyes because he went to town on what Trudeau had said last night. But you're suggesting maybe the big thing to wait for is Jean Chrétien's speech. Why?
Well, I have to tell you, Jean Chrétien, and I mean this with the utmost respect to Mr. Chrétien, is the living personification of the federal Liberal Party that Justin Trudeau did everything to expunge. The Liberal Party that Jean Chrétien headed no longer exists. I mean, he's coming out. He's an elder statesman, very successful PM. Probably be remembered best and probably be remembered longer than Justin Trudeau as the prime minister who kept us out of the Iraq War. But all that said, he's a pretty straight shooter, but he's also a very loyal soldier. So he is going to be sitting down with the industry minister, François-Philippe Champagne, during what's referred to as a keynote discussion. Now, we'll be talking about the economy. I honestly, it's Friday, it's the weekend. I got all kinds of stuff lined up for tomorrow, but man, I'm going to make the time to try and watch this conversation because it's going to be fascinating to hear from a former leader of the Liberal Party who actually led a party that convinced people it was the party to rule. Not because the other guy was completely ridiculously, off track, but because this was the party that would look after you. Now, we'll see what happens. We'll see we'll see how the conversation goes. But I got to tell you that, contrast and compare, Justin Trudeau jetting off to London for the coronation, and here's Jean Chrétien, who's known a few, who's had a few brushes with royalty over the course of his life, sitting down at a policy convention, the first one they've had in person in 5 years, and talking about the future of the party. I just think it's going to be, I'll be paying very much attention to it.
Wow. Okay. Well, I hadn't thought of that, but that's interesting. Yeah. That'll be fun to watch. Jim, thank you. You have a good weekend.
You too, guys.